Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington as both campaigns chart a course for the final 55 days and debate the possibility of another debate after a fiery and historic face-off that left Trump allies frustrated and underwhelmed and Harris allies in high spirits. The night full of clashes on key issues, dodges and taunts by both the former president and the vice president. But what stood out the most was how Vice President Harris appeared to accomplish her goal of getting under her rival's skin early and often.
And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there.
Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. We have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president. We have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
It's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
The former president delivered some strong moments, but the post-debate reaction from his allies and the candidate's decision to appear in the spin room made clear he struggled. He was lured into fights and repeated a number of conspiracies and false claims. The former president turned many of his answers to one of his strongest issues, immigration, but his focus on the issue was overshadowed by raising baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio. Take a look.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. The people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
television. But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
And in another of the night's memorable moments, Mr. Trump doubled down on false claims that he won the 2020 election. Of course, he did not.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever got. People should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent.
Vice President Harris, while dodging key questions about her views on policy and her ties to Biden, focused on one of her strongest issues early in the night, abortion. And in a lengthy back and forth, the former president contradicted what his running mate told me on Meet the Press 2 weeks ago, that Trump would veto a national abortion ban.
Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that.
I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to.
If I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D., in all fairness.
In a barrage of post-debate media appearances in the spin room and on Fox News, the former president claimed victory, criticized the moderators, and waffled about committing to a second debate. The vice president, meanwhile, reiterated to supporters that she still sees herself as the underdog in the race, with her campaign also making it clear she wants a second debate. Harris also received a post-debate boost in the form of a surprise endorsement from pop star Taylor Swift, who threw her support behind the Harris-Walz ticket in an Instagram post to her 284 million followers. Joining me now on set is NBC's Garrett Haake for the latest from the Trump campaign. Peter Alexander is at the White House, chief White House correspondent, with how the Harris campaign is reacting today. Thanks to both of you for starting us off. So, Garrett, let me start with you. I know you've been working your sources. What are they saying to you? Because obviously Trump is saying this was his best debate ever. I've been talking to his allies who say it was a miss. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I'm hearing largely the same. I mean, a lot of Republicans, elected officials, people who are close to the Trump campaign, basically Republicans who are not on Trump's payroll are largely willing to concede that at best, he left points on the board. There were a lot of opportunities that he had, that he was prepped for, to try to tie Vice President Harris more closely to Joe Biden, or to try to make her own some of her past positions that are more liberal than the stance she takes now. He did not do so. Instead, he chased, some rabbits, basically, on crowd size or on, pets in Ohio, things that are probably not helpful to him long term. That said, a lot of these people don't think that matters that much at the margins, that the onus was still on Harris to introduce herself to the country. Nobody in this country is undecided about Donald Trump. He was who he is, and they're going to try to continue to prosecute the case. That's probably the best they can say for themselves right now. Yeah,
Garrett, you were in the spin room when he surprised everyone. It felt very 2016 when he walked out into that spin room. What were your takeaways? You asked him right off the bat, if you thought you did so well, what are you doing here?
To me, the seminal moment of a candidate in a spin room ever was Rick Perry in 2012. This is when he forgot the third agency he wanted to get rid of. He knew he had to come to the spin room to clean up that mess. That's why candidates usually come to the spin room. If they didn't do the job they needed to do on the debate stage, that's the framework that I looked at Trump's appearance in the spin room, that he didn't feel like he successfully got his message across on the stage. If you're Donald Trump, the solution to any problem is more Donald Trump. And I think he thought he could be a better messenger, a better spinner than anyone else on his behalf, including, by the way, his vice president, whom he continued to undercut, I would argue, even by showing up and sort of taking the wind out of his sails by being the big dog in the spin room.
Yeah. What are you hearing about a potential second debate? The president's been former president's been waffling. He's now indicating, well, maybe he will do it. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, last night it was a no. This morning it was a no. This afternoon it's a maybe. He's talking again about doing a debate on NBC News or doing a debate on Fox News, suggesting that he's open to it. My money with Trump always comes back to if there is a debate, if he's being called out for not attempting. Like if Kamala Harris came out right now and said, I've agreed to a debate on NBC News on whatever day in October, Trump would be there. I think it'll be very hard to keep him off that stage if a debate is set. But I think we're going to have another couple weeks of this will he or won't he story, maybe even until that second debate gets scheduled and shown up for.
Yeah, it's a great point, Garrett. You have to think, do they really want to let the final word be left with their running mate?
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. Peter, let me go out to you. What are you hearing from the Harris campaign? Obviously, she feels like she had a very strong night. At the same time, she didn't answer some key questions about her record and about some of her shifts in policy and how a Harris administration would look different from a Biden administration.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kristen. Certainly the Harris campaign, is thrilled by her performance last night. Their post earlier today on social media was literally the debate itself, effectively saying, hey, you got any questions? Just watch this thing all over again. So they do feel very good about it. I think there are some questions that remain unanswered if you want to dig down into them over the course of the evening. She never really answered specifically whether Americans were better off now than they were 4 years ago. She didn't say specifically what she would have done differently on immigration, and she didn't answer the question of whether the Biden-Harris administration bears any responsibility for the U.S.'s chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan that left 13 American service members dead. But the bottom line here, Kristen, is this was an incumbent against a challenger. Donald Trump, of course, a former president, but he is the challenger this go around. And the Harris campaign feels very satisfied that in many ways she made this a referendum on Donald Trump, that turning the page would be turning the page on him, not on the Biden-Harris administration. And I think that's a message that they hope resonates with a lot of Americans right now. Not every American views it this way, but she really is the one trying to cast herself as the outsider, as the sort of change agent in this race.
She absolutely is. And Peter, just sort of extraordinary optics today. Of course, the nation pauses to mark the 9/11 anniversary.
Yeah.
Vice President Kamala Harris, Former President Donald Trump came face to face yet again today in New York. And President Biden was there as well. The optics so interesting because you had Harris shaking Trump's hand for the second time in as many days. And also this reminder that she has served with President Biden. And yet, as you just pointed out, Peter, is trying to distance herself so that she can make that case that she's the change candidate. How challenging is that?
Well, about that exchange, that handshake that we saw between Trump and Harris today, remember yesterday was the first time they'd ever met. Well, they only waited an amount of hours to say hi to one another again. He today described it as a polite greeting. But to your point, Kristen, about her ability to sort of separate herself from Joe Biden, that is and remains a challenge. No matter how she tries to cast it, she said, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. She is still the incumbent vice president of the United States right now. But again, to where I started here, she's trying to make this race as much about Donald Trump as it is about the Biden-Harris record and their administration to this point. Notably, Biden has not been very public alongside her other than one event so far. She's effectively campaigning on her own throughout the course of the campaign. She's going to be in North Carolina again tomorrow, and they want her to be standing on her own two legs to define to Americans what a Harris presidency would look like and how specifically that is different from a Biden presidency. Notably, she has tried to moderate her views, and on some issues, she has been less progressive than him. She has moved further to the middle of Joe Biden on those issues. And on some other ones, she's tried to lockstep her position with him, specifically on the topic of fracking, as she was pressed last night.
Yeah, and, you know, Peter, I mean, one of the big questions is, will she do give a more detailed explanation for how she got from point A to point B? And I guess the question is, what is the strategy for her moving forward?
Well, we're going to see her on the road. As I said, she'll be in North Carolina tomorrow. I think based on the conversations I'm having with smart analysts who are observers of political campaigns dating back decades, they say she has really given herself a strong foundation from which to build going forward as it relates to this campaign. She didn't answer everything, certainly didn't talk about a series of different topics maybe the campaign would like her to, the CHIPS Act, the infrastructure success of the Biden-Harris administration. But bottom line, they do feel like she succeeded in communicating to the American people a sense of competency and a vision for the future. Kristen?
All right, Garrett and Peter, thank you so much for starting us off on a very busy Wednesday after the big debate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.